From Wall Street to Main Street to help small business owners have the same capital as corporate America and give them the same resources as a larger company. We cover business funding, business credit, scaling, business consulting, and much more. Check out the website at shieldadvisorygroup.com. Welcome to the show, The Liquid Lunch Project.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Liquid Lunch Project. I am Matthew R. Meehan alongside my partner, the professor, Luigi Rosa Bianca. What's on tap today, Lou?
Matt, today we've got Rob Buffington. Rob is founder and CEO of Gordian Staffing, and he's also a highly regarded consultant in the HOA management space. Now, I know there's a lot of us out there that like to experiment with bricks. So this conversation is going to resonate with all of us. So Rob, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So how'd you get into the HOA management space? It seems like really niche, very specific.
Well, it's a common joke at conferences that nobody goes to the trade show in high school and signs up to be an HOA manager. We all just kind of fell into it. I started buying rental properties back in the '08 crash. From there, I became a real estate broker. Then I became a rental property manager. Then I bought a book of business that had a few HOAs in it. And it all happened progressively. So yeah, I just kind of fell ass backwards into it like most people. And 10 years later, some reason I'm still here.
Well, necessity is the mother of invention, but you're not in the business for this long unless you're doing it really well. So kind of teach us, what are the secrets to being a highly efficient real estate property manager?
These days, the number one thing people want is responsiveness and customer service. You certainly need expertise, you need technology, you need you need all of that. But the number one thing people want is to be heard and to get a quick response. The number one thing that we get requests for are customer service reps, admin assistants, just even if it's nothing more than, hey, I've gotten your email. It's going to take me a day or two to get a response from this person, but I'm going to get back to you. That's what people want these days, particularly in the last few years. Client expectations have gone through the roof. But the nice thing is technology has automated a lot of things, and a global workforce and working from home has made it a lot easier to get staff in the right positions.
So it's in the early teens, you're developing and building your real estate portfolio, and you realize that there aren't a lot of professionals out there that are doing this at a very high level. I could kind of do it myself, right? So there's a certain there's a certain expertise and arrogance that comes with that. So kudos to you. But
I've always been arrogant. Yep.
Yes. So walk us through the different levels of expertise that someone needs to lean upon when he or she is building their real estate portfolio.
I mean, the first thing I would say is get your cabinet of accountants, as a college professor once called it to me. I've taken 10 years and I wouldn't consider myself an expert at all. I would say I have experts working for me and I have people that I know that I can call. I would say as you're building a rental portfolio, as you're building any kind of business, make sure you know the right people. You want obviously good mortgage broker. You want you can't determine the appraiser anymore since the '07 crash, but you want a good property inspector. You want a good contractor. You want those people in play for the long term. Make it clear that if this goes well, I have this many more coming in the next few years. So you don't need to do it all in-house. There's a lot of things I still, pardon the pun, but I outsource. And that can be a lot more efficient. Just make sure you find those people, keep them happy.
Well, for the less savvy investor out there who has maybe one rental property or maybe is just starting where you were 15, 20 years ago, at what level does it make sense to hire a management company and start outsourcing these work? Because I would imagine that when you're starting out, you probably buy yourself a couple of you buy yourself a toolbox at Lowe's and you kind of just do it yourself. I mean, at what point does it make sense to opening up the wallet and hire professionals?
I'm probably biased because I'm from the industry, but I usually recommend it right away. And here's how I think about it. People would never intentionally skip on an insurance policy, right? Even though they're not going to use it. Why? I mean, number one, it's required for the mortgage, but at some point, something's going to happen that will make you glad you paid those premiums all those years. We've got the Maui wildfires going on right now. We've got floods, all this stuff. The way I look at it is you could manage yourself for a couple of years, no problem. You could get a couple of properties, not have a problem. At some point, though, you're going to get that bad tenant who's going to exploit something that's not in your lease, not in your contract, and you're going to lose a lot more than you would from management fees all those years. And you don't know when that's going to be. You can't look ahead and say, oh, now I'm going to hire a manager because it's too late. So doing that up front from the get-go, in my opinion, is a much safer way to do it because you want to play the long game. And a good manager can help you save money. They can negotiate better rates on vendors. They can help you avoid some pitfalls, hopefully lease your property quicker, things like that.
Now, Rob, let's leave trendiness aside, right? But a good property manager, where do you stand in this eco-friendliness when it comes to bricks? I mean, are you covering every piece of property with solar panels and you're digging wells? I mean, at what point has the technology caught up to true financial needs of a real estate investor? And at what point are you on the fences waiting for the right moment?
I mean, a lot of that is going to end up being the decision of the client, of the property owner. Obviously, if you're in an HOA, solar panels may not be an option. You want to look at the cost effectiveness. And it comes down to personal preference. The first thing you have to do in any business, whether it's real estate, normal, brick and mortar, online, whatever, determine what's important. If your only goal is to get the maximum return regardless while staying inside the confines of the law, I hope, cool, that you decide that I don't think there's anything wrong with realizing that's what you're after. Be honest about it. That's what I'm going to do. If being carbon neutral, being environmentally friendly, if that's really important to you, determine where on that spectrum you fall and then make the decision, but be honest with yourself first. Because if you don't know that, then you kind of get halfway in between and you get hit by trains going both ways.
Rob, I come from a real estate experience where there was one term and it was the 11th commandment. It was cap rate.
Yeah.
You didn't make a move unless the cap rate was substantial. Now, in 2023, where real estate values in a lot of the metropolitan areas are inflated and rentals have taken a little bit of a hit, especially on the commercial side, where do you recommend your clients fall in making an investment vis-a-vis cap rate? Like at the end of the day, you can't leave money in the bank because it's not working for you, and inflation is so draconian that you're losing money by keeping it in the bank.
Absolutely.
On the flip side, you make a wrong move with real estate and you're bleeding at the end of the year. So kind of walk us through that tightrope, please.
So cap rate is absolutely important in the short term. You can't go cash negative, that's for sure. If you have an adjustable rate mortgage, you have to be careful of that. I've got a couple of those, and rates have gone to territory we haven't seen since the 80s. I always look at it, though, as an appreciation move. Yes, cap rate is good, but that covers the mortgage. It covers the operating expenses, hopefully gets you a little bit of dry powder to invest in the future. But the real money is the appreciation. So I never buy a property that I don't think I can hold for 30 years. Not saying I will, but I would much rather keep it, appreciate, pull the equity, invest that way. My personal residence, I've got a 2.6 mortgage, and I am not selling that until that thing's paid off because there's no way I can get within 3 points of that. So I focus on the appreciation. And I also tell people, like I was on a podcast yesterday and they said, so Rob, when's the market going to crash? And I said, I have no idea. People smarter than me can't figure it out. So why bother? But the difference between here and wherever the bottom of the market turns out to be is infinitesimal compared to how much a property is going to appreciate 30 years. So I know a lot of people that are saying, I wish I had gotten in 2 years ago. I wish I had gotten in 3 years ago. So you kind of need to balance all that. And I know I'm not giving you a straight answer, but I've always looked at it as a long-term proposition. As long as you're confident that you can cover the mortgage, have a little extra cash for rate adjustments, roof leaks, that kind of thing, the focus is on the long-term appreciation in my mind.
So you remind me of a conversation I have at every one of my wife's relatives' weddings. There's always a great uncle that walks over to me and tells me how much of a genius he was because he bought some real estate in New York City in the 70s. Okay.
Right.
And then I tell him, well, you know what? If you would have put that same money, maybe in some S&P based equity, who knows where you'd be 40 years from now? Like, it's not right or wrong. But who's the moron? Was buying real estate in a quasi-bankrupt, crime-ridden New York City a smart move in the 70s? Simply because of that hope, that aspirational hope of increased valuation? Because at the end of the day, there's 40 years of upkeep and management and maintenance and leaks and wear and tear and property taxes. Or is there something to be said about that nice, quaint dividend that comes in every quarter?
Oh, yeah, you absolutely need both. I would never do something without the cash flow, but I think if you look at it on a long enough timeline, you'll find both.
The reason we really asked you on this podcast is that my partner is a Airbnb entrepreneur. What tips do you have for those folks that are wetting their feet in the Airbnb market? Because obviously you always look for the rent, but like you said before, you're always going to get that phone call after the stay that you need a cleaning lady, the toilet paper ran out. Like, how do you manage those expectations with trying to be the next Trump vis-a-vis Airbnb?
I would say, number one, make things consistent. I'm a firm believer that exceptions cause mistakes. So whatever you're going to do it consistently through all your properties. Airbnb is definitely one where you do want the cash flow because that's what you're getting at. Because most people do that on more of a temporary basis than long term. Decide if you're going to do it yourself versus hire people. Decide what your time is worth. One of the best pieces of advice I got when I was younger is put a number on your time. Anything below that, I'm going to hire somebody for. If I'm not making $100 an hour, $200 an hour, I'm going to hire somebody to do the work because I can go out and generate leads, find new properties, do something like that will generate that.
Rob, let's talk about the staffing company. How did you get involved in that and found a company not located here in the United States, but you actually outsource a lot of the staffing to other countries? So let's talk about that a little bit, because I think a lot of business owners could actually learn.
Sure. Most things I've done, like Gordian Staffing, came from a problem that I was having. At that time, I had, I think, 3 companies, 2 property management companies and a building services company. And I was having a real hard time getting and keeping quality admin staff. I had somebody who didn't work out in a really profoundly bad way. And somebody said, hey, I'm hiring people out of Mexico. You should try it. I did. It worked amazing. This was April. By August, I had hired 10 people. They were doing customer service, admin, accounting, you name it. And I actually started doing it just for myself because I started as independent contractors, and that works as the short term, but people want benefits, they want security. So I formed the corporation in Mexico so I could be compliant, jump through all the hoops, etc. Took 11 months, but I got there eventually. And then I was just talking with a buddy of mine, comparing notes, and he said, oh, that sounds really cool. Could you help me do that? I'm like, well, sure. I've got somebody who I couldn't hire but seemed like a great candidate, and I connected them, and it worked out. He told somebody who told somebody, and it really was honestly kind of in the hobby territory until COVID hit. I think we had maybe 50 employees, a lot of whom worked for me or my friends. And then COVID hit, and holy crap. When it became impossible to get staff, the phone it wasn't so much that we were saving people money, although we were. It was, you can get people. That's amazing. I'll hire as many as you can get me. And actually, we just passed 500 employees this past week. So
that's amazing. That's big time growth. 50 to 500.
It's been a good couple of years, and I'm really proud of the organization. We pay people really well. We give them full benefits. We treat them well. Most VA companies, which is a term I don't like to use for our services, they churn and burn. It's couple months. We have people 3, 4, 5 years, and that's about as old as the company is. So I actually have my first 2 employees still working for me, so that's pretty cool.
So what type of positions do you guys actually source for?
You would be amazed. Most people, we recommend they start with one of 3, either customer service, admin, or entry-level accounting. answering emails, answering phone calls, or doing your basic accounting work. Because there's a lot of US GAAP companies based in Mexico. But after they've been with us for a while, we have division managers working, we have team leads, we have maintenance coordinators, we have community managers. You would be amazed. There are some truly amazing people. I haven't checked the numbers in a while, but last time I did, 84% of our people have at least a bachelor's. Another 7 or 8 have an associate's. Decent chunk have a master's. So these are truly some amazing people that we're recruiting, and they stay for the long term.
So now that so when a company comes to you and they say, hey, I need somebody to help me out on the administration side, are they actually hiring your company, or are they actually hiring the person himself behind the scenes that's doing everything? Or is so
legally they are Gordian Staffing's employee. We have a US and a Mexican entity, so we file the payroll taxes, we do the benefits administration, we do all the work. But practically speaking, they work for that client. If it's, ABC Corp, they have an ABC Corp email and an ABC phone extension. They go to the team meetings. They work for that one client on a permanent basis. So they're part of your team. I tell people, we're not outsourcing, we're helping you open your Mexico office.
And what is the cost benefit analysis there from hiring somebody here to there? Because I know it's reasonably less money, right? 40
to 60% savings. Okay. And then the advantage is twofold. Number one, let's take an admin assistant. Let's take $10 an hour just for a round number. Of that $10 an hour, they're living way better than somebody domestic who might be making $45,000, $50,000 a year. So you're saving money, but they're actually living much better comparative to the cost of living. And then as a result, you're getting better quality candidates. So it's not inferior people for an inferior price. That's why I don't like the VA term, because it has a negative connotation. We've all had that phone call or that chat session that was just so frustrating. Our people, we get so many compliments and they're so friendly. They're so great to work with. People love them. And they come down. We have a big Christmas party. People come down and see their team members. It's really great.
Where is it based out of? Where in Mexico?
We have 2 offices. One's in Guadalajara. One is in Mexico City.
And how are you able to screen these candidates remotely? I mean, do you have human resource team that is doing background checks and screening them and making sure that they're sweet and kind on the telephone?
Yeah, we have a recruiting department. We have an HR department. We probably have 35, 40 people at this point in the offices in Guadalajara and Mexico City. So we have offices there. One of the things that makes us a little different is that we let people work from home, but everybody lives within driving distance of the office. So they come in for their first day, they work on company equipment. If they ever have an issue, they know where to come in and find us. It makes them feel very connected, at least that's the impact.
Rob, would you mind if I gave your phone number to Chase? Because I think they could definitely use your services.
Yeah, I was actually on support with QuickBooks this morning, and after 20 minutes, I just said, you know what, I give up. Just have a nice day. I got stuff to do.
So, Rob, you seem to be the guy that gets, but also he likes to give back. You seem to be very community friendly and very charitably minded. How important is that in the economy of Rob Buffington's life?
I would say it's the most important. I think a lot of people say that, which makes me hesitate to even say it because it sounds kind of phony, but it's honestly a major part of what we do and why we do it. I was actually a pastor for a couple of years. I got my degree in nonprofit management. I wanted to work in charity, wanted to work at a church, and I did for a couple of years. My goal is that all these things that we're doing can eventually be used for charitable purposes. So right now we give what I consider to be generously. I hope to do more in this coming year, of course, but every company gives a certain percentage of what it makes back to charities. We do Gordian Financial, for example. We do free bookkeeping for nonprofits. We have company work days at an orphanage in Guadalajara that we support. We have a company in Idaho that does shoes for impoverished areas that they give, stuff like that. But the long term is we hope that Gordian Staffing, Gordian Financial, all these pieces can be used to support nonprofits the same way they support for-profits.
Rob, where's the name Gordian come from? What's the etymology?
Greek. Well, it's a Greek anecdote. I don't know if it actually happened, but the story is that when Alexander the Great went out to conquer the world, he passed through what is today Turkey, and came to a town called Gordius, and there was this knot attached. This ox cart was tied to the wall, and there was this knot that had just been there for years, growing and getting more tied up. The story goes that an oracle said whoever can untangle the Gordian knot is destined to rule the world. So Alexander stands there for a second. He looks at it, stands just a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And without warning, he takes out a sword and he just slices it in half. And he says, there, I untangled the Gordian knot. So the term slicing the Gordian knot has become synonymous with taking old problems and solving them in new and decisive ways. So I felt like that was a good brand representation. I have to admit, I thought more people knew the story when I picked that name. I should have done a focus group or something, but I like the name.
Now, had you called it TikTok staffing, you'd get a whole lot more resonance.
Yeah, probably not the ones we'd like, though.
Yeah, there aren't too many classically educated children anymore in America.
Yeah.
So, Rob, you started out with the real estate. You started speculating. You grew it to have a wonderful portfolio, and then you started offering that to the public. You then transitioned to Gordian Staffing. Okay, you're doing wonderful things in the community, and it seems like you're a pretty well-based gentleman. What's next in line for Rob Buffington?
We want to continue offering the services that we want to expand the services that we can offer to our clients. So we started with just staffing, then we added accounting. Now we have consulting and shared services. In the next 12 to 24 months, we want to launch fractional HR services, fractional IT services, get into doing some tax work for our clients, auditing, things like that. The goal is that our clients can have all of their needs met in one company that they have a relationship with that knows them. Some of my purchases, I went through a really rough time, and I look back now and I just think, you know, if you dropped me back 10 years ago and if I knew what I knew now, I could have fixed that in 5 minutes. But the problem is I didn't know what to ask and I didn't know to whom I should ask it. And that's the problem. Like, you could talk to a lawyer for months and say, and unless you ask the exact right question, they're not going to spit out the information you need.
Well,
so our hope is
hourglass, Rob.
Yeah, that's why they always do it on the phone too. Yeah, our goal is to be that one-stop shop and to just make the business owner's life a little less chaotic, because it's a rough life. And to be honest, we take a lot of abuse these days. Just last week, I got an email from some employee that had been let go accusing me of being heartless and you don't care. And it's like, you don't know the first thing about me. It's like it was unfortunate.
So Rob, where do these real estate entrepreneurs find you? How can we get in contact with you to increase our portfolio?
Easiest one would just be LinkedIn, Rob Buffington, Gordian Staffing. You can find me on there.
So Rob, are you still dabbling and investing in real estate yourself? Or are you just really focused on managing the HOAs or building the consulting, staffing side, accounting side of the business?
I own a couple of properties. I have liquidated most of it in the last couple of years as the business takes off. Any business that grows quickly eats way more money than it generates. So I've been liquidating and putting it back into the business, but I do try to buy at least a property a year. Awesome.
What areas are you looking at?
Right now I'm buying in Omaha because that's where I'm at. One of the reasons we moved here is because it's a good market long-term, good economy, did well in the last recession, that kind of thing. But again, I'm in the long-term play. My goal is 50 years from now, I have a good portfolio that we can manage through our own efforts and yeah, but I'm sure there are other people that can give you better CapEx rates and better markets.
Well, Rob, thanks for being here. We want to be respectful for your time. I got one question before I let you run. If you could go back 10 years, would you have started in real estate or would you have jumped into the staffing?
It's a good question. I think I would start with the real estate because it's kind of like lower returns, but also lower risk. And without the knowledge that I gained in real estate, I never would have survived in business. And it's nice and it's stable. It's unless a tornado comes and wipes it out and your insurance turned down, you've got something to fall back on. That's why I try to buy a property a year, because it's nice, it's stable, it's long term, and you can have a great portfolio that doesn't take all of your time. Whereas if you start a business, that is your life.
Thank you, Rob. Guys, that's a wrap on the Liquid Lunch Project. We'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you for listening to the show. And make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. We'll see you on the next episode of the Liquid Lunch Project.